Episode 2 is where we really get into the action of the fight.
From USA Today, it's the City Podcast, Season 2, Reno.
One of the things that was always difficult for me in reporting this story was trying to figure out, one, the motive of everybody at the city that was driving this, and who at the city was always driving this. Once something makes it to city council, it's not like it just spontaneously arrives on an agenda, right? Like somebody has decided this is a fight we want to take on. And from the very beginning, it looked like it was not necessarily driven by city council members. And I always thought, why does this look like so much of this is coming from the city attorney's office? Now, the city attorney is elected in Reno. The city attorney is Carl Hall. He says his job is to implement the policy that the city council decides on. But we were very far along in this reporting process when one night, it was like 10 o'clock at night, I was finishing up just kind of watching TV and, checking in on work real quick before I went to bed. And I got this message from my editor. Do you know about this office building across from the Wild Orchid that Carl Hall just sold for $1.12 million? And I gulped. I was like, what office building that Carl Hall just sold for $1.12 million? I didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it. But my very intrepid editor, Matt Doig, was just curious and pulled up Carl Hall's financial disclosure form. He saw the 6 properties that were listed on that, and he looked up on the map and found this office building not even a block away from the Wild Orchid. And Carl Hall had put it on the market during this entire fight. So did this property drive Carl Hall to try and kick the strip clubs out? I don't have any information that says that. This piece of property had been in his family for decades. It was his wife's law practice. His wife moved on to another job. They wanted to sell the property. All of that makes sense to me. But when you don't disclose it, it hurts that public trust. It's like, well, what were you trying to hide, if anything? Why not say, hey, I have this piece of property that might benefit one way or the other from moving the strip club that my office is telling everyone is having a bad effect on the neighborhood and is making it difficult to sell properties or to lease properties. Why not tell people that this is something that's occurring? So episode 3, you have bookended by these 2 different police operations. You have the 2007 raid, and you have the modern day undercover operation, which ensnares Stephanie. An off-duty officer was spending time in the club, says he was propositioned for sex, and that was the spark of this raid that we hear at the start of episode 3, where 13 officers in full tactical gear, come rushing into the club, gather up all the dancers, go downstairs, scare off the customers, go into their locker rooms, are checking their IDs. The women are standing there naked. So the police really overstepped their bounds in this raid. The federal judge who oversaw the club's eventual lawsuit about that raid really slapped their hands, gave them a talking to about interrupting business and degrading the women. And so the police stayed out of the clubs. They had also been smacked by the judge. There were lawsuits involved. So we were able to pull the complaints. The police officers involved had all written affidavits of, their involvement in the raid and their description of the events. The dancers who were there, they had also written affidavits about what had happened. That's how I found Tawny to begin with, was, through the court records. And I was able to track her down 10 years later. She's still living in Reno. She's not dancing anymore, but she was willing to tell the story from her perspective of what was going on there. I had hoped to talk to some of the police officers involved. I had even reached out to police officers involved who are retired now and maybe would have been willing to talk. The Reno Police Department declined to comment on something that had happened in 2007, and even the retired police officers didn't want to give their accounts. To figure out how often the police have been in the clubs, I asked for 3 to 5 years worth of police reports. Tell me every time the police have been in there for an undercover operation. And I was able to find that Stephanie had been cited And it turned out that her court date was coming up. And so Stephanie's trial was the first time I actually met her. She's shy and accommodating and, respects law enforcement, is afraid of getting in trouble with law enforcement. And it was a really long day. It was a difficult day for Stephanie. But yeah, just being a reporter, just walked up, introduced myself and said, I'm working on this long-term story and was hoping you'd be willing to talk to me about your experience. And she said yes. She gave me her phone number and away we went. She makes all of her money in the back room. And in her mind, what the guy's going to get in the back room is just a private dance, the same kind of lap dance that he's going to get on the floor, but away from his friends. But, they're trained to play up the mystery, to play up the what if, to play up the maybe of what they might be able to get in the back room. So yeah, this isn't all to say that they are, victims of circumstance necessarily. But I think that they are, in the context of our story, they're real people who are overlooked, and their experiences are overlooked by those who are making kind of the decisions that are going on here. And they are the people that are feeling the impact of the fight. The first time I encountered Velma was at the city council meeting. We heard that tape of, her nearly weeping, saying, please don't do this. Please don't take our homes away.
We need this hotel more than anything in the world right now. Not just me, but other families. I'm not the only family raising kids there.
She lives in the Ponderosa Hotel, which is the weekly hotel that's attached to the Wild Orchid. So Cammie owns both. Cammie is essentially Velma's landlord. And it was a really dramatic moment, not just with Velma, but with this entire cast of people who live in the Ponderosa. Cammie has told his tenants that if the city succeeds in kicking out the strip clubs, he's going to double their rent because he has no other way of generating enough income to keep the hotel afloat. He says that hotel depends on the revenue from the strip club. So he scares the crap out of them. As Reno is entering this new economy, as the economy is improving, as all of these tech workers are coming into town, the housing prices have skyrocketed. The way Velma sees it is that she doesn't have any other choice. This is a home for her. It's a stable place. It's better than the homelessness that she's experienced before. But she doesn't see a way out of it. She doesn't see any other kinds of opportunities for her. And that was why we wanted to get to know Velma and John so well and bring readers into their lives. And they were gracious enough to open up their homes to us and let us see how they live and let us see the home that they were fighting for.
Listen and subscribe to the City Podcast for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other videos from USA Today to stay up to date with all the latest news.